Take an Amex card with you on your morning coffee run and earn cash back. On a weekend trip, earn miles. See if you pre-qualify for an American Express card with no impact on your credit score. Learn more at americanexpress.com/check-4-offers. Your credit score may be impacted if you accept a card. Terms apply.
Thank you for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. I'm Jeff Zito, and before these people were famous, what did they do? We talk about their first job and a little bit about how they grew up with their family. What kind of jobs did they have? You can follow on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast, or youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. Past guests and episodes online, celebrityjobber.com. And streaming everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. By the way, once again, the #1 podcast on the Apple Podcast Music Interviews chart. Thank you so much for your continued support. My next guest is an absolute legend in rock and roll. The #1 best-selling album of all time, The Eagles' Greatest Hits. Don Felder, a member of the Eagles in their heyday, and actually left the band in 2001, after which he filed lawsuits against his former bandmates alleging wrongful termination, breach of implied in fact contract, and breach of fiduciary duty. He's published an autobiography detailing his tenure with the Eagles, Heaven and Hell, My Life in the Eagles, 1974 to 2001. And there's a great documentary. It's a 2-part documentary. It's about the Eagles. And there's a pretty good part that shows you when they kicked Don Felder out of the band. So we're going to ask Don about that. We'll see if there's any chance of a reconciliation. We'll talk about his new album, some of the stuff that he's doing now with the St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which is really cool. And growing up in Gainesville, Florida, we'll talk about Don's first job, which I got to tell you is a pretty great story. Now, I'm not going to give anything away, but there is definitely one thing you're going to hear, and that would be his passion and love for music, period. Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Don Felder, formerly of the Eagles, is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Don, you got a new album. Reading the title of the album is The Vault, 50 Years of Music. So is this Vault, are these songs that are 50 years old? Some of them, are they stuff that just haven't made it out of the vault? Are they brand new? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, most of them were just basic music tracks. I was told by Bernie Leadon when I first joined the Eagles, if you want to write songs for the Eagles, don't write melody and don't write lyrics. Just write music beds in a song format, like intro, verse 1, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, chorus, solo, chorus, chorus, out. And so I would write these music beds ideas with no lyrics, no vocals, no melody, no nothing. And, I would put them on a cassette, and I'd give them to Don and give them to Glenn when we were working on a record. And if they liked a couple of them, one became Hotel California, one became Victim of Love, another one became Those Shoes. So if they liked those music beds, then they would write the lyrics on top of it. So what I had was hundreds of basic song structure demos with no lyrics and no vocals. And I went back and heard some of those, and I said, well, hell, I'll write the lyrics. I'll sing these things and finish them myself. And it turned out that it was so much fun to do that, and I liked the way they turned out. I was able to write the songs and the lyrics myself. If I'd have had that freedom in the Eagles, they would have been on Eagles records. But didn't. It was the songwriting was really controlled by Don and Glenn.
So, Don, the Vault, 50 years of music. Can you take me back to the beginning? Can you take me back to, 50 years ago, or maybe even a little before that, in Gainesville? Well, can you tell me what your very first job was? I mean, forget music. Was your very first job within music, or did you have another first gig?
Well, I would say, other than mowing lawns and washing cars as a kid, when they finally opened a music store in Gainesville, I went in and got hired after school to demonstrate guitars, help sell guitars, give guitar lessons there in their music store, and I think I got paid $10 an hour.
Wow.
But I didn't get cash. I just got it put on credit. So I could take and build up a credit and get some strings and build up credit and trade my amp for a better amp. And so it was the only way my family, as poor as we were, I could get anything new or improved in the way of moving from a Sears guitar to a Stratocaster or a Les Paul or something, was to work for it. So that was my first gig, was working in that music store.
Well, I'd say $10 an hour in those days. That sounds like a lot of money. Is that music store also where you met Tom Petty and Duane Allman? Can you talk a little bit about those guys?
That's correct. That music store was called Lipham's Music, and it was the most generous. He would give you credit if you needed a guitar or an amp, even if you didn't have a credit card. As long as you came in and you paid him something every week or every couple of weeks to pay off what you had done, he would extend you credit. He funded the Allman Brothers band. He funded my band. He funded any and everybody in town to get musical instruments in the hands of the musicians. And God bless his soul for doing that, or none of us would have been able to afford good instruments.
I read about maybe you gave Tom Petty music lessons at that store when he was a young guy.
Well, I didn't teach him at the store. I went over to his house and I showed him how to play some piano chords. He was playing bass in this band, and he really wanted to be able to write songs, and it's hard to write songs playing bass. So I taught him some guitar chords, so pretty simple stuff, and some piano chords in his house, and helped him organize and arrange some of his band. He had two guys in the band that just plugged in, turned up as loud as they could, and thrashed on these guitars. And just annoying and stepping all over Tom's vocals. And so I kind of helped arrange some of their early band live arrangement. But yeah, that's where I met Betty, was in that music store. And I met Duane and Greg in Daytona Beach. Duane taught me how to play slide. And it was just an interesting area down there. Between Gainesville High School had Tom Petty, myself, Bernie Ledden, and Stephen Stills all going to GHS at the same time.
Wow, that's
so we
incredible.
all knew each other, and Stephen and I had a band when we were 14, and I taught Petty guitar. Bernie Ledden taught me bluegrass music, and he didn't even have an electric guitar when he showed up in town. I took him down to my music store and got him an electric guitar on credit, and we started a rock band.
Wow.
So he filled in for Stephen when Stephen moved back to California. Bernie Ledden took his place.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
I heard that back when you were a child, you spent some time yourself in a children's hospital. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I complained to my mom when I was about 4.5, 5, that I was just really tired. And, most children at 5 years old, you can't slow them down. So they took me to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with potentially having some pretty serious complications. They put me in a children's hospital ward, and there were about 12 beds in this big room. And in comes this kid who's just been put in an iron lung right next to my bed. And I was just terrified that was going to be something that I may have to face in polio, when they told me that I may have polio. Kids would come in with tonsillectomies, and they'd be laying there on a bloody pillow with blood coming out of their mouth. And I was just horrified for the 2.5 months that I was there, confronting all the reality of children in hospitals.
Wow.
So I decided with my girlfriend to put this sweepstakes. It's called the Don Felder Rock and Roll Retreat Sweepstakes. 100% of all donations go directly to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. They have done amazing work. They have raised the lymphoma rate of survival from when they started in 1960. The survival rate was 4% of kids that came into that hospital with lymphoma. Today, it's over 96% survival.
Unbelievable.
So they've done amazing work saving kids' lives. When the overall cancer rate started at 20% survival, it's now up to over 80%. But they still have work to do to fix that last 20% and that last 4% for lymphoma, so that every child that comes in there with cancer or lymphoma can survive.
Don, you've got a sweepstakes where you're actually trying to get somebody, if you enter the sweepstakes, you'll give somebody a guitar lesson. Can you tell me a little bit about the sweepstakes and how to get involved?
This package is incredible. You're going to win round-trip airfare for 2 people anywhere in the United States to Nashville, Tennessee. You're going to stay 3 nights in Nashville, Tennessee at the biggest suite I think I've ever stayed in, called the Broadway Suite at the Westin Hotel in Nashville. Fantastic hotel. You're going to win a white double neck guitar, a 1275, just like I play every night on Hotel California. You're going to go on a tour at the Gibson Garage with me, including going down into their legendary vault, where they have stored all these historic Gibson guitars, the very first Les Paul that Les Paul developed, the very first acoustic guitar that they published, the very first Explorer rock and roll guitar, Firebird, the very first original guitars that came out of that. And the next day, we're going to go back to the Gibson Garage, and I'm going to be speaking there and doing a public performance. You're going to be my special guest. I'm probably going to do a Q&A there, as well as playing maybe 4 or 5 songs for the crowd. You're going to get a one-on-one guitar lesson with me at the Gibson Garage.
Wow, that sounds incredible. How do you register to get in on the sweepstakes?
You go to donfelder.com/contest or donfelder.com and look for the contest and click on it, and it'll take you to the place where you can make donations right there. It'll give you all the rules, all the list of everything that's in the prize package. And for every $50 that you donate, you'll win 1 entry ticket into the sweepstakes drawing. So the more you donate to save children's lives, the more chance you have of winning this thing at donfelder.com/contest.
Such a great charity. I commend you for your involvement with St. Jude's Children's Hospital. What if music wasn't going to work out for you? What did your father do for work? What did your parents do for work when you were growing up in Gainesville?
My mother and father barely finished the 3rd grade before they had to go to work. They were the oldest of 4 children in both families, and their mother, one of them died, and the other mother ran off and left 4 kids. So my mother was the oldest of 4 kids in her family. So they both went to work at the age of 10 years old. My father went to work in a factory where there was no child labor laws, that was making telephone poles, and the creosote and the OSHA didn't exist in those days. But he was 10 years old working in a plant that made telephone poles.
Wow.
And would come home just exactly covered head to toe and black coveralls, and just he knew everything about that plant because he started there so young that when he finally retired at 65, before he retired, they had him come to the factory and describe underground for every pipe and every cable and for every steam line and everything that was buried, because he was the only one that was there while it was being built and installed and improved on. So, and my mother worked in a dry cleaners, cleaning people's clothes. So we're very humble. Both of them left, I think, their education in the 3rd or 4th grade and had to go to work. And so I could understand how they did not want me to not get an education and not be able to work at a level unlike what they had to go through. I understand that. But the joy I got out of what I was doing and making, by the time I was 15, 16, I was making more money playing music at fraternity parties and bars than my dad was.
Wow.
So I bought my own car, and, I thought, well, if this is as bad as it gets, this is okay.
This ain't bad. Right.
That's right, and it's not working in a plant or a factory, or, he was a brilliant mechanic. He taught me a lot about the automobile. He would repair everything on the automobile that we had. I think if anything was wrong with it, he wouldn't take it to a garage. He would figure out what it was and go buy a part and fix it and put it back together, and off we go. So, he developed a great deal of respect from me for his mechanical skill. He also taught me how to solder, because after I got my first electric guitar, I would step on the cord and break the wire that went into the guitar, and he would have to repair it. So finally, after about the third or fourth time, he said, if you're going to keep breaking this cable, you're going to have to learn how to fix it. So he taught me how to solder, and I wound up buying a Heathkit stereo that was a kit with all the parts that you had to solder together to build, so that I could have some way to play a record player and an amplifier. So he was a great help in teaching me how to figure stuff out. To this day, I appreciate his interest in teaching me how to look at something and understand how it works, and how to fix it or repair it.
That's cool.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
DC politicians want to enact harmful credit card mandates that could take away your cash back and rewards points. Perks that stretch your budget and make life a little easier. Losing these benefits means less money for your family's everyday essentials like gas and groceries. The perks you rely on could disappear, leaving you with higher costs and fewer options. Tell Congress to guard your card and oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card mandates.
Paid for by Electronic Payments Coalition.
Take an Amex card with you on your morning coffee run and earn cash back. On a weekend trip, earn miles. See if you pre-qualify for an American Express card with no impact on your credit score. Learn more at americanexpress.com/check-4-offers. Your credit score may be impacted if you accept a card. Terms apply.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Did mom or dad ever have a chat with you to say, Don, look, I understand you've got dreams of being a musician, but what about a backup plan if it doesn't work out? Anybody have that talk with you?
Yeah, my brother and my mother and father really wanted me to be more like the path that he was on, because, he was a straight A student, got a scholarship to the University of Florida, academic scholarship, got an academic scholarship to the law school at University of Florida, graduated, went right into a law firm, and, he was pretty much set for the rest of his life. And I was playing bars and playing places like Dub Steer Room and Gatorland and fraternity parties, and I was a C student, maybe C plus student at the most, but my mind and focus wasn't on academics so much as it was on music. I just had music in my brain nonstop, and my future happiness really came down to the love of playing music. And I didn't care if I was going to play in bars for the rest of my life, or, got to the point where, back when I was growing up, there were no Rock and Roll Hall of Fames. There were no Grammys. There were no Platinum Awards. There was none of that. It was just, I did it because I loved playing music, and nobody was going to talk me out of how happy it made me and how much joy I got out of playing music. So, the consequences when you're really poor to begin with, the consequences of just continuing to be poor but doing what you like that makes you happy is really important. That looks better to me than, just getting a regular job working in a gas station or doing something to just, eat and stay alive.
Right.
I needed to have love and enjoyment in my life from what I was doing, and that's what propelled me all the way to today.
Don, do you remember a moment when you were younger? Maybe you just met up with the guys and you started playing with the Eagles. Was there a moment that changed your life forever? Whether it was a phone call to join the band, whether it was getting signed to a record label, hearing your song on the radio for the first time, was there a moment in your life where you said, "Wow, I think my life just changed forever"?
No, because music is a very involved business to be involved with. A lot of artists come out, they have a hit record, they're a one-hit wonder, they go through the roof selling records and touring, and then 5 years later, they're history. So I never really accepted the fact that I had, quote unquote, made it. And despite all the record sales and accolades and awards and all that stuff, I still don't care about so much about that or the money as much as I care about the music that I'm making. And that just driving force of the loving music and walking into a studio completely dark, turn it on, have no idea what I'm going to write and record, and create a new song or a track, or like this album, The Vault, where I went back in and took old ideas and rebuilt them ground up. It's just such a joyous, happy, fun, exciting thing for me to do, that it's not a matter of how much money I'm going to make from that. That's not the goal. It's how much joy and fun and excitement I get from doing what I do. Walking out on stage, I played just a couple of nights ago in a small theater that was a fundraiser for that theater. I played there, maybe there was 500 people, a small but great old theater, raised a lot of money to keep the doors of that theater open. We had a wonderful time. The show was fantastic. People loved it, raised a lot of money, keep those doors of that place open. Now, tonight I'm going to play in Cincinnati, and there'll be probably 15, 18,000 people here. Wow. It's the same feeling for me to walk out, whether it's a little venue like that, or it's a big venue like this, or I've played stadiums over 100,000 people with Elton John when the Eagles played there with him in Wembley Stadium. It doesn't matter the size of the venue. It's a matter of how much energy and fun and enthusiasm I get every time I walk on stage and play live, or walk in the studio and start writing and recording. It's just, I love this life, and I've had blessings along the way that have enabled me to be able to continue doing this, not for the money, not for the fame, not for the awards, but just for the sheer love and joy of doing it.
Is there a particular moment with the Eagles, a time frame, an album, an era that you fondly look back on as pretty satisfying time of your life?
I think the work that I did with the different combination of the Eagles, when I first joined with Bernie, and then when Bernie left and Joe came in, and then when Randy left and Timothy came in, whatever the formation was, it was an incredible amount of talent in that group of people. The singing was just spectacular. The harmonies were very identifiable. The guitar parts that Joe and I and Bernie and Glenn wrote were just great. The whole package of the combination of those people's individual talents is what produced that. It wasn't one person. It was the combination of the whole band, and it was an honor to have been part of that creative process and writing, like the bass part for One of These Nights.
Right.
I wrote the bass part, and the whole arrangement for Hotel California was one of those non-vocal demos, and we copied it almost verbatim. So it was a great, very creative time and a lot of talent. That band, it was probably one of the only bands that I know of that everybody in the band could write, sing, and play. And so there was an abundance of material, abundance of vocals, abundance of guitars. It was just wonderful time to be in. There's not one specific day or song or album. It was the whole time we were together.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
Well, I saw the two-part documentary, and I'll just tell you, Don, I hope that the future, I hope that you guys come together in the future. I saw that two-part documentary. I'm just telling you, I'm on Team Don, and I'm talking about Team Don Felder, just so you know. So I really do hope that in due time, everybody could get back together. Would that be something you'd be interested in, or no, have you moved on?
I'm not sure. I don't need the money. I don't even need the money to be playing this tour that I'm out with now, or I do it because I love to play music. And There's a joy and a thrill and a happiness that's involved when you have the freedom to play the music you want to play and you like to play. There's not that freedom and that thrill in working inside the Eagles. It's just a different feeling. And so I'm not certain that I would participate in that. If it were there, I would consider it. I'd have lunch and talk with Don and Irving, find out what plan is, and we'd kind of go from there. I'd take it cautiously into consideration.
Yeah, from an outsider looking in, Don, I'll just say it seems like you're having fun. You love the music, and it looks like the Eagles is a business. From an outsider looking in, that's what it looks like.
Well, that's the truth. I'm having a great time doing what I'm doing. And, like I said, I walk on stage or walk in the studio, not because I want the money, not because I want the adulation. I don't want awards. I just love doing what I'm doing, and that's why I do it. And it's doesn't matter if I'm doing it in my band or in some other band or sitting in with sticks or whatnot. I just love to play. And so I'm happy as can be doing what I'm doing.
I've read stuff about Glenn Frey's passing and how that affected you. Any chance of maybe you and the other Don Henley, getting together and shaking hands and moving forward?
I never say never. I will say that I'm very happy doing what I'm doing as a solo artist right now and playing tours where there's no divas, there's no hissy fits, there's no drama. It's just a lot of fun guys enjoying what they do and making great music together. So I never say never, but so far, wait, is that my phone ringing now? No, I'm sorry.
Again, a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I know your time is valuable, and for you to give me this extra time today, I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon, and I'll see you in Tampa next time I come through there.
Will do. Thank you, Don. Take care now.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, bye.
I mean, we're talking to a guy who really loves playing music. I think that's what I got out of this the most. The guy loves it. Seems like he's really enjoying what he's doing right now. Did he catch when he said he's touring, he's having fun, no divas, no hissy fits? There's a 2-part Eagles documentary that came out a little bit ago. It's really good, but in my opinion, Don Felder was really mistreated by both Glenn Frey and Don Henley. And when I told Don Felder that it appears from an outsider looking in, the Eagles are a business and not playing music for the love of the music, I think Don tended to agree with me. You got to see this 2-part Eagles documentary. It's really good. And the way they kicked Don Felder out of the band, I think is really unfortunate. And it seems like Don Felder is taking the high road. I would like to see those two Dons shake hands at some point. Growing up in Gainesville, Florida, I had no idea that he was in a children's hospital at a very, very young age. And that's why he has such a closeness with the St. Jude's Children's Hospital and that incredible sweepstakes that he's involved with, giving away the same guitar that he played Hotel California and, spending the day with him in Nashville, round trip airfare, hotel accommodations, beautiful suite, and a one-on-one guitar lesson. This is a great sweepstakes. DonFelder.com/contests is where you can find out more information about the St. Jude's Children's Hospital sweepstakes. Mom and Dad were poor growing up. His father worked on telephone poles and started working young, like when he was 10 years old. And his mom worked in a dry cleaners and really struggled as he was younger, as he says. But the coolest story is about his first job. He's playing guitar. He's getting a job at a music store in Gainesville and talking about meeting Bernie Ledden from the Eagles, Stephen Stills, and giving guitar lessons to the late, great Tom Petty. And $10 an hour back then, I would imagine that was the 60s. That was a lot of money. But it wasn't cash. It was store credit. Don's brother was a pretty smart guy. Went to the University of Florida, full scholarship, went to law school, became an attorney. Seemed like everybody was kind of pushing Don in that direction because they didn't want him to continue to be poor. But Don wanted to be happy. And as he mentioned, playing all these fraternity parties and local gigs in Gainesville for beer money and was able to buy a car. He thought to himself, well, if this is it, this isn't so bad. Legendary guitarist formerly of the Eagles, the great Don Felder. And thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, #1, again, on the Apple Podcast Music Interviews chart, streaming everywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart. We're on all of them. So please don't forget to subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. Past guests and episodes you can check out on CelebrityJobber.com. Some great guests lined up in the very near future, like Chris DeMakes from Less Than Jake and the legendary John Fogerty. That's all coming up here in the very near future on the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Again, thanks for listening. Until next week, I'm Jeff Zito.